Hey everyone, this is Andy Clements from DC Personal Training, and I wanted to just drop in and share a few words on stress and its impact on your health and your body composition. Now, it might sound hyperbolic, but your inability to handle stress really is keeping you overweight, it's keeping you unhealthy, and it's possibly keeping you quite unhappy as well. So it's really important that we actually address this as part of a program and an approach that's designed to get you healthy, get you losing weight, get you active, and get you fitter and stronger. So the first place that I want to start with this is your nervous system. Now, I know that's not necessarily a really sexy term or something that is going to, make you really sit up and take interest, but your nervous system is one of the most important things when it comes to your ability to handle stress and your ability to actually make progress when it comes to your health and fitness goals. So when I talk about your nervous system, I'm specifically referring to your autonomic nervous system. And when I say autonomic, you can kind of think automatic because it kind of happens without your conscious control. We can influence what state we get into in our autonomic nervous system, but we can't literally click our fingers and change from one state to the other, okay? So there's two branches to your autonomic nervous system. There's the sympathetic, or the fight or flight state, which you've probably heard of, and that's what switches on when we get stressed. And there's the parasympathetic, and that's lesser known, but that's the rest and digest state, and that's the state where we're a little bit more chilled out, and it's a state that we need to be into probably a little bit more in modern society. Now, when we are confronted with a stress, or we are under low-level stress for the entire day, like there's family stress, there's relationship stress, there's work stress, or you're just generally worried about life or whatever's going on, the sympathetic or the fight or flight nervous system starts to kick in, okay? And what happens here is we start to get a shutdown of the normal processes like digestion, that starts to get down-regulated, the reproductive system, all the things that we don't need for survival in that moment start to get down-regulated. Not necessarily shut down, but they just start to get slowed down a little bit, because if you are in a state of survival, right, and if you need to deal with the stress that's right in front of you, like there's a tiger chasing you or there's a bus coming speeding towards you, you don't need to be digesting food in that moment. You need to be channeling all the resources possible to your muscles and to the areas responsible for movement, so that you can get out of the way of whatever's coming towards you, or so you can deal with whatever stressor you need to deal with in that moment. That's how it evolved. The problem is that today, we don't often have that many stresses that are life and death, because we live in quite a safe society, right? Which is a great thing. But we still have the biology that thinks we need to deal with stresses that are life or death on a daily basis. So quite often what can happen is this sympathetic nervous system goes into overdrive because we're constantly stressed with these minor things, and the fight or flight system kicks in when it doesn't need to. But it keeps us moving, it keeps us dealing with day-to-day stuff. So it's not necessarily a terrible thing, but we need to keep it under control. Otherwise, we're not going to get into that essential state of parasympathetic where we can actually start to chill out and relax. We're constantly in this high anxiety state. So being in this sort of overdrive state of fight or flight or sympathetic activity gives us things like poor digestion, because like I say, digestion gets pushed down the pecking order. It's not a high priority to digest a meal when you're in a high state of stress. So if you're really stressed out, you can probably find that you might get some stomach issues. You might get things like IBS, things like this, flaring up more than usual, because the resources aren't there in the digestive system to be able to digest that food. They are in the muscles because your body thinks it's under threat, okay? You're going to have things like high anxiety, so your mental health might suffer a little bit because you're in such a high state of stress. You're going to have things like hormone disruption, because the hormones of stress are upregulated massively, which cause a chain reaction down the line, and naturally things don't fall where they should fall, so that can have a cascade of unwanted consequences as well. And also, as a side note there, as a consequence of constantly being in this state of fight or flight, this state of sympathetic overdrive, you don't have any resources left to channel into your workouts. So when you come into the gym and you start trying to lift weights, or you start trying to push the energy, you find you don't have anything left, because you spend all day in this sympathetic state. You don't have anything left to take it to another gear. So the best you can hope for is like a moderate intensity workout. You can't go in and do the high intensity stuff. You can't go in and do the HIIT training or the really hard weight training that's really going to make a difference to your body and make you look, move and feel better, because you're constantly in this state of stress. So it's kind of like a catch-22. It's almost like if you have your car and you put it in second gear and you rev it up to as fast as you possibly can, expecting to then be able to rev it even more without shifting out of that gear and allowing the car to just come down to a lesser state where it's under less pressure and less stress. You can only do that for so long. So the sympathetic nervous system is meant to work like that. It's meant to work in a state where you can push really fast for a short period of time, but then you're supposed to take your foot off the gas, right? So there's nothing wrong with being stressed. It's an adaptive thing. We have a response to stress, which is the sympathetic nervous system. Nothing wrong with using it, but you have to use it in short bursts. You have to know how to bring yourself out of it slightly. And there's always going to be stresses around in our lives, right? And the question is, how do we deal with it? And how do we not let it take over our lives? How do we not let it give us these negative consequences that we have to deal with and disrupt our workouts and disrupt our digestion, and disrupt our sleep and disrupt our hormone profile and all that kind of stuff. So there's a number of different tools that we can use to try and deal with the stresses of daily life. And again, these aren't exhaustive. Obviously, this isn't a long enough video, or maybe I'm not even the right person to be giving you an exhaustive list of things how to deal with your stresses. Whatever works for you is the right thing to do, as long as it's safe, legal, and healthy. But yeah, there's a list of tools that I've got here that might help that's worked for me and work for people that I know that I think would be really useful. So the first thing is journaling. Now, journaling is basically just the process of writing down how the day's gone. Now, I know this seems a bit out there, a bit woo-woo, but it really, really does work. It worked for me for a long time. It's worked for people that I know. And they basically just have a notepad and a pen by the side of the bed. They write down what happened in that day, how it made them feel. And it just helps you to process what's gone on that day. And it helps you just to stop obsessing over small things that might not actually be that big of a deal, but they're actually causing quite a lot of stress. So that's the first thing, journaling. The second thing is getting out in nature, because we're so often just surrounded by man-made stuff. Like even in the gym, we're surrounded by man-made stuff. We are disconnected from nature. We're constantly glued to the phone or the laptop or the screen or whatever, and we forget where we came from. So getting out for a walk on the beach or in the woods or whatever it might be, just getting back in touch with nature is a huge, huge thing to help you just drop down from that constant stress and speed of daily life. The next thing is meditation. Meditation has been a huge, a massive, massive tool to just, again, unplug from the stresses of daily life. So if you're not sure how to start with this, using like a free app like Headspace or something is a really great low-cost tool to be able to learn how to do the basics of meditation, to calm the mind down, to slow the body down, and to come out of that stress state a little bit more. Surround yourself with the right people. That's another thing. You know, we're social creatures, we need a community. So making sure that you've got the right people around you and not isolating yourself, so you can talk to people about these kinds of things and, you know, might just get people to listen. You might be able to get it off your chest. You might get some good advice on how to deal with your problems. And that again can help you to drop down into that parasympathetic state from the stress state. And then the last one, again, if it's a little bit more serious, or even if it's not and you just need this anyway, counseling has been fantastic, certainly for me and for a lot of people that I know. There's no real replacement for that, so I think that's definitely worth considering. Finally, what I would say, addressing the elephant in the room, is if you can remove the stress from your life. That's not always possible, but if you can remove whatever the biggest stress from your life, then remove it. Like, just take it out of your life, or take yourself away from that environment if it's really, really stressing you out, because that will be keeping you unhealthy and it will be having a massively negative influence on your life. I know that's not always possible, but if it is, then that's what you should do. So I hope that helps, guys, and yeah, I'll speak to you next time.